What is up, guys? PK here.
In a world
Where I had no imagination for an intro, I pretended like I could do the epic voice guy voice, but really, I couldn't.
Bruh.
But regardless, what is up, guys? PK here, and in today's video, we're gonna be doing another tier list. That's right, the creativity of this channel knows no bounds. But for real, I looked in the comment section of yesterday's video, which was far too much effort, that video. Like if you compare sort of the output of the video to the amount of effort put in, that video was way too much effort, you know? So what I'm gonna do is, instead, you guys had a great idea, amazing ideas, right? You're like, you should do a tier list about properties and weapon traits. Yes, so low effort. I love it when you guys suggest super low effort stuff right after I've made a way too high effort video. So essentially, that's what we're going to do today. We're going to make one, I've made already a tier list, one for item properties, and I've made another one for item traits. And since I've made both the tier lists, but in recording this intro, having not yet decided which one we're going to do yet, I actually don't know. You already know, because you can probably see it in the actual video title. But regardless, I just thought I would give a quick shout out. Let's see here. Let's take a look. A breakdown and ranking of properties and traits would be good, how they apply their usefulness, etc. I was like, I like that idea, and people were like, exactly what I think. Wow, Felix, I'm not gonna lie. That's some creative spelling right there. Sorry. I might be worth incredibly checking on breakpoints, since power and properties are hitting breakpoints is a natural fit. What Craig said, cover the exceptions. Yes. Yeah, but long story short, it seemed like you guys were down on that idea, and so yeah, here we are. Oh, that's me. What a good-looking guy. Anyways, where was I? Oh yeah, I guess it's gonna be properties first. Properties first. It is. So let's take a look at these properties. Also, we're on the wrong screen. There we go. So here we have this masterfully crafted tier list. And there we go. Completely fluent transition without anyone noticing anything. Anyways, let's take a look. Here we have our tier list. It goes from S tier to F tier. And I spent a couple of hours yesterday making a bunch of small icons here, because I wasn't exactly sure how else to do it. So where do we start here? Okay, let's see here. What have we got? I think this is actually going to be a bit harder than I initially thought, right? Because the hard part is here, how do we judge the criteria, right? Because obviously you can't have, like for example, how do we judge power versus chaos versus power versus Skaven, right? Because there'll be situations where either is the right thing in order to hit certain breakpoints. So how do we compare them to each other? Maybe the one that's right, like that's most valuable most of the time, it's hard to say. There are a couple of things we can judge it on, right? But I think let's start with what we do know, what's the easiest thing to judge, and that is the fact that damage, revive speed and spawn speed has to be the absolute shittiest traits in the game. I'm actually not sure what is more shitty, these damage reduction traits or revive speed traits. I feel like one of them is probably E tier and the other is F tier, but which one is which, right? So I want to say, like, I think instinctively I want to go like this, right? But the damage reduction numbers here, 10% damage reduction to a specific faction or to area damage is so little. Like, I think one of the things we could talk about a little bit, just to get into something interesting in this video, is that why are these traits here? Like, they should be at a minimum double in their damage reduction capacity, at a minimum. So even like, and even then I think they would be weak, right? Even if this was 20%, I still think that it would be a fairly weak property. Like that's the truth. Maybe the damage area would be like alright-ish at 20%, but even maybe on an nah. It would have to be 25% actually. I think like they're so useless right now that it's almost hard to describe on higher difficulties. Like they're so irrelevant that it's mind-boggling. So then we have revive speed and spawn speed. At least they provide like they're useless, right? They're just useless. Because again, like if you take the I think it's 30% you can cap these out at, right? So 30% revive speed. That means you get the person up. You know, instead of it taking 100% of the time, it takes 70% of the time, right? And I forgot what the exact time standard time is. It's like 2 seconds or something. I think it's like 2 seconds. Let's just assume it's 2 seconds. Don't hold me up on that, but I think it's around 2 seconds. So let's say it's 2 seconds, and that's 70% of 2 seconds, right? So essentially a second and a half, just over a second and a half instead of 2 seconds is what it would then take you to revive someone with 30%, right? And the spawn speed is obviously is the time from you dying completely to you then respawning, which again is like so irrelevant. So your team is in a certain location. Depending on whether or not they cross a certain threshold, they will spawn in a specific spot. So for you to spawn faster, may in like a tiny set of scenarios, it may actually cause you to spawn closer, but like most of the time it really won't. And like if your team knows those, it's just such a bad spot. I think I'm satisfied with this. This is fine. But like I feel like these two shouldn't even be in the game. They should be replaced by something else. Honestly, they're so boring. And the damage reduction traits should be buffed massively. Like they should just be buffed a lot. Okay, but let's move on here. What else have we got? Okay. So what is a clear S tier? Let's talk about what's a clear S tier. Stamina recovery, clear S tier. Like you guys and anyone who's been watching my channel for a while knows that, in my opinion, stamina recovery, maybe unless you're playing the Handmaiden, like in every scenario where you're not playing the Handmaiden, stamina recovery is, in my opinion, the single most important trait in the game, property in the game. It saves your ass so much. Like you won't even notice it, but it'll save your ass on so many occasions. So that is, in my opinion, the single strongest property. But I think we could also put attack speed. Do we put it on the same? Let's put it on the same for now. Maybe we'll move it down afterwards. But for now, let's put it there. Because we've talked about this before as well. Attack speed is not just attack speed. It's animation speed, which means it really buffs. It can buff everything from obviously your attack speed, but it can also buff your shooting speed, right? So your attack speed with your ranged weapon. It can also buff your again your reload speed with certain weapons, depending on which weapon ranged weapon you're using. This will also impact your reload mechanic in certain cases. It will also, because it decreases the amount of time it takes to do an animation, and because certain weapon animations pull you forward, that means it can also actually buff your movement speed. These are all animations that attack speed will impact, okay? So that's important to know as well. So that's why I think it's fair enough to put it up there. Now, block cost. This is why it gets tricky. Okay, let's start somewhere else. Because block cost, crit chains they're clearly also up there ish, but let's see what else we got. Okay, what can we place with confidence? Let's say push block. Push block is, it's not that it's horrific in of itself, it's just that there's always a better option, almost always. There are certain builds, I would say, with shields and such, where you can get that nice 360-degree push arc by looking downwards, jumping and pushing on the dwarf, for example, to increase that cone size. If you guys remember that cone I talked about in the shade video, again, it's the same for pushing. And so if you jump before you look down and push, you can sort of widen the area of the cone and thus do a 360-degree push. But I still think it's down here again, because every time you take it, you're taking it in relationship to health, stamina, and block cost, right? And those are all just amazing properties. And for that reason, I think we have to place it down here. But it's still a lot better than damage reduction. What else have we got? Okay, let's see. What about these power traits? What are we gonna do about those? So I think the two best ones, okay, let's put them B tier. Let's say we put Skaven and Chaos B tier, right? Because the two most common ones you're going to use are Power vs. Skaven and Power vs. Chaos, because they affect the widest range of minions, right? So they have an effect on the widest array of breakpoints, so to speak. I think Monster has to be at least a tier lower, because monsters only affect bosses, obviously, and stranglers, pretty much. And not even lords, just like flat out monster spawns. And for that reason, I think it has to be lower than these two. That much is for sure. We may even bump these up to A tier, but let's see here. Infantry. Oh, infantry, because you need infantry. You use infantry a lot. It's also one of the more common ones. And as well as armored, whereas Berserker is probably less used. And again, that's only very specifically versus Berserker enemies, which there are only monks and Berserkers, pretty much. And also, there's an outlier, which is also a Berserker. It's Nurgloth the Eternal. He's also a Berserker. What else have we got here? Let's see. Health is obviously at a minimum an A tier. This one is hard. We got block cost. Block cost also has to be, again, you pretty much, health and block cost are the two most common things to put on your necklace. Sometimes you'll put stamina, but I feel like stamina is slightly worse than block cost overall. Like if you look at the sort of, there are times where I will pick stamina over block cost, even if block cost provides more block sort of block value, but there are times where I want to have the extra stamina to do a push block attack with a specific weapon, for example. But I think overall we have to put stamina a little bit below block cost, and I think we also have to put it below health, because so the value of health is less when you have less health, right? So if you only have 100 health pool, you only gain 20 health. But that's, at the same time, that's also where you need the health the most, right? So even though you get 30 health when you have 150, for a total of 180, then at the same time, you don't need it as much there, but you get more. And having 100 health pool, man, that is tough, right? Because then once you pick up Grimoires, especially if you then also don't have curse resistance, maybe we do like this. Yeah, I think that's actually fine. That opens up the seats here. And then maybe we put like this, because I feel like these two are more common than these two. So they are better overall, slightly. And maybe we bump stamina down here. Then we put crit chance up here, maybe even, because the value of crit chance often lies in activating Swift Slaying. That's why it's so important. Obviously crits are always good, but often crit chance is sort of, it's a method by which to activate something else, right? A lot of the value is not necessarily in the crit itself, but often in that you needed to get ammo back, or you needed to proc Hunter, or you needed to proc Swift Slaying, or you have a talent or a passive like Witch Hunter Captain, where a crit and a headshot combined is an execution, or with a shade, where, so it's often a means to an end, and the value isn't in the crit itself, yet it's definitely up here in popularity, right? In terms of popularity, there's no doubt that it's an S tier, but is it an S tier in value, or is it an A tier in value? That is the question. I mean, I think I have to put it S tier, actually. Yeah, I do. Because my default trinket is Stamina Recovery Crit Chance. So I think I have to put it up here in the S tier. Yeah, it's S tier. It's S tier. However, Crit Power. Crit Power, however, is nowhere near S tier. Crit Power is like down here. I'd say Crit Power is definitely better than Damage Reduction. But is it better than Power versus... I mean, maybe. What do I use the most often? Let me think. Do I use Crit Power more often than I use Push Block? Yeah. Do I use Crit Power more often than I use Power versus Berserker and Monster? Probably, yeah. But I feel like it should be in a tier between these two somehow. How do we balance that? I mean, you know what we're gonna do? Well, you know what? We're gonna decide that all of that is just straight dog shit. And then we're gonna do like that. Yeah, that's what we're gonna do. Now, obviously, there are highly specific situations, right, where crit power is really good. No doubt about it. Like there's the guaranteed crit javelin build. There's obviously the bounty hunter repeater handgun build. There are definitely scenarios where you can use crit power to hit insane breakpoints with guaranteed crit heroes. But as a property overall, there are way fewer cases where you should be using crit power than where you likely are using crit power, right? Because like the default for any new player, myself included, I should add, was just, elf, crit change, crit power, right? It's like, that must be good, right? Crit chance, crit power, what's not to love? Crit chance, crit power, that has to be the best, right? Crit chance, crit power, of course. But that's just not the case, I'm afraid. Maybe I'm being a little bit rough on crit power here, I'll admit it. But that's also just because I know how many people would be like, yeah, crit power up here, but it's just not, guys. I'm sorry, it's just not, okay? It's just not. Crit power is not that amazing. It's not that good in 95% of cases. And then there's the 5% where it shines, right? But for that reason, I have to put it D tier. I'm sorry. What else have we got here? Okay, then we have something like curse resistance, right? How the hell are we gonna place curse resistance? Because it's so situational, right? It's like you're gonna be using it 95% of the time if you're playing Legend, but you're gonna be using it 0% of the time, or maybe 5% of the time when you're playing Kata, right? Because people almost never go for books. So it's very sort of dependent on what are you doing a book run or are you not, right? Because if you're not, then it's useless. If you are, then it's really valuable. I mean, it's not necessary on Legend. I do Legend runs all the time without curse resistance because I'm just too lazy to switch my trinket. I think it's a solid B tier. Nah. How do we place curse resistance? I don't know. I'm gonna have to think a little bit more about that one. Cooldown reduction. Okay, cooldown reduction I think is overrated as well. Because 10% is just not a lot. Okay, so what would situations be where you may go for cooldown reduction? It could be a bounty hunter, right? Where you know you can get that 80% back. This brings you up to 90. This means you can pretty much just boom, 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 right? It's not a necessity with that build, but it's definitely a viable way to go. But at the same time, it's like for the really long cooldown ultis, which is where it gets the most value, right? So like a hero like Handmaiden with a 20-second ulti, we're talking about a 2-second difference, which is equivalent to just doing an attack and hitting 4 minions, pretty much, right? So in that sense, it's very little value. Whereas with the longer ultimates, where you obviously get more value because of the percentage, right? You get a sort of more seconds in cooldown, but at the same time, with those ultis, it's like, feels kinda... Does it really matter if it took you a minute and 30 seconds or if it took you a minute and 40 seconds? Sometimes it will, but it's gonna be rare, right? Because when you have one of those ultimates that have such a long cooldown, you're usually already fairly conservative about when you're using them. Where do we put you? It's not amazing, but it's also definitely useful. Do we put it next to yeah, I think we can actually put it next to crit power, because I feel like there are highly specific circumstances where it can be really good, but it's also overall, I think the perception of cooldown reduction is that it's better than it actually really is, because you just get so much more of your cooldown reduction without people realizing it. A lot of your cooldown reduction just straight up comes from punching stuff, right? So I think that's a fair placement, actually. Then we have movement speed. Now, movement speed is one of those properties that I think a lot of people will be like, oh, yeah, it has to be down here, right? But I would actually disagree. I think movement speed is like up here, at least. And why is that? Maybe not here, maybe here. It's definitely minimum C tier, possibly even B tier. How do we juggle this? We could, you know what, maybe we have to do like that, right? Because if you think about it, how often do you get health? Pretty much 100% of the time. How often do you get block cost? 95% of the time. How often do you get either power versus chaos or power versus Skaven? Pretty much all the time, right? You're pretty much always gonna have it on something, which means I think it's fair to put it 8 tier. Yeah, we're gonna put it 8 tier. And what that allows us to do is do a little bit of a reshuffle here, right? I think first of all, Power vs Berserkers is actually better than Power vs Monster. And I think, oh, this is so hard. How are we gonna do this? And what are we gonna do with curse resistance? I still have no idea. Maybe we do it like, give crit power a little bit more love, okay? And then curse resistance like a solid C tier? Not gonna lie. This is a lot harder than I thought it was gonna be. Satisfied with the F tier, okay? That's all dog shit, regardless. So whether or not it's on the E or F, who really cares? It's dog shit, right? No one ever uses any of these properties, just flat out. No one. Like, no one I've ever met actually thought either of these was a good idea, ever. Then we have E tier, power versus monster, very overrated, okay? Unless you're trying to hit a highly specific breakpoint on a strangler, that's the one situation where you get a pass for power versus monsters. That is strangler breakpoints for a ranged weapon only. Nothing else, okay? If you're like, but I want more bust damage, no, stop yourself. Okay, stop yourself. If you think that it's worth it to put 10% monster juice because you want more bust damage, then I'm sorry, my friend. You're just wrong, okay? The only scenario in which you use power versus monsters is in order to hit a breakpoint that you could not have hit otherwise on a strangler. That's what it's for. Then we have push block, which again, only one use, and that is for highly specific shielded weapons to be able to do a 360-degree push. That's pretty much it. Then we have the D tier, power versus berserkers. Pretty much the only situation I can think of where I'm using power versus berserkers. It's very rarely to hit an actual damage breakpoint. I'm sure there is a situation where you would do that, but I can't think of any time where I personally have ever actually done it to hit a damage breakpoint. It's only, for me at least, in order to hit a stagger breakpoint for playing like Onslaught and such, and not a situation where I've ever used it for a actual damage breakpoint. Because usually you're just going to try to hit those with 𝒮𝔲𝔞𝔤𝔢𝔯𝒮𝔮𝔲𝔞𝔡 or not bother, really. Cooldown reduction. I used it a lot back in the day when I didn't know what I was doing. But it's actually been a very long time since I put cooldown reduction on any of my trinkets. Like, I have it on my trinkets, but I do actually use it, right? Stamina recovery, cooldown reduction, battle wizard. Sometimes movement speed, sometimes cooldown reduction. Does that put it up here? Maybe? Nah, it doesn't. That's too specific. Okay, so I'm satisfied here. I'm satisfied here. I mean, curse resistant, it's like, it doesn't really matter where I put it, right? I feel like this is such a situational thing that it's like I could put it here and you could make a case for it, and I could also put it here and make a case for it, right? Like, oh, you don't need it on Kata, it's dog shit. Oh, you always need it when you're doing book runs, it's up here, right? So for that reason, I'm just gonna put it in the middle. Movement speed, amazing. And the reason movement speed is amazing is because it allows you to hit certain movement speed breakpoints that prevent minions running in your back from hitting you in the back when you're running in a straight line, right? And that is a lot more valuable than you might think. Okay, there are certain heroes where if I don't have movement speed on my trinket, I just realize like halfway through the game, I'm like, oh fuck, I forgot to put movement speed on. Like Huntsman, for example. If I don't have the movement speed talent on Huntsman, then I need movement speed on the trinket. Because otherwise, with the spear, I cannot hit that breakpoint, and then I feel like I'm so slow that I can't clutch. Like the moment I'm on my own and run out of stamina, I will be fucked, right? So I feel like movement speed is better than people think, even though I'm sure I'm gonna get some hate for putting it above crit power and stamina, but I am. So deal with it. I'm satisfied here, and I'm satisfied here. Yeah, you know what? Maybe. You know what? I think I'm in the wrong here, actually. Does that make sense? Maybe. I feel like I use attack speed and crit chance about as often as 𝒮𝔲𝔞𝔤𝔢𝔯𝔮𝔲𝔞𝔤𝔢. Yeah, you know what? This is it. This is the one. This is the properties tier list. Here we go. This is it, boys. This is what it looks like. In the top solid, we got the defensive, stamina recovery, health, and block cost. In the solid A tier, we got crit chance, attack speed, power versus 𝒮𝔲𝔞𝔤𝔤𝔢𝔯𝔮𝔲𝔞 to hit breakpoints. B tier, we got movement speed, power versus armored and infantry. C tier, stamina, crit power, and curse resistance. D tier, power versus berserkers and cooldown reduction. E tier, push block angle, power versus monsters. And in the dog shit F tier, we got revive speed, spawn speed, damage reduction versus chaos, area, and 𝒮𝔬𝔞𝔤𝔤𝔢𝔮𝔬𝔞. And that's it. My camera was not optimized for this frame, so we're gonna end the video by doing like this and saying thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please like, a comment, and a subscribe so we can reach 10,000 subscribers. And as always, I love you guys. Stay awesome. Peace out.